The opening scene features a successful contractor, Clint Goodman, who lives with his pretty wife, Joanna. While at work, he calls his wife and tells her that he's going to miss her, since she's going off to work during the weekends. However, Joanna doesn't seem to be pleased with him at all. Later on, Clint attends one of his clients, who is there to offer him a good deal for his business. After work, he drives his way back home when he is pulled over by a local sheriff, Sam Eberly. Turns out that the sheriff is Clint's friend, who invites him to go fishing together.
Gonna have to give you a ticket for being so dang good at baiting worms on a hook, buddy.
Clint gives an honest assent, responding that since Joanna is gone for the weekend, he has a free spot available. Upon arriving back home, he sets his dog Duke free from its cage before joining his wife in the kitchen. He tells her about the client who came to offer $1.5 million for his business, but he turned him down. This news agitates Joanna, who then expresses how she wants to live in the city instead of being caged up in this rural farmhouse like a rat in a maze. The discussion eventually escalates to an argument, and Clint reminds her that he traveled 2,000 miles from the bustling New York and built this house so that they can live a better life together. However, Joanna doesn't seem to understand this, so she storms off in her sports car. That evening, Clint goes out with the sheriff, and while they fish, Sam asks how things are going with Joanna. Clint then confides everything in him, including how she, being a city girl, craves city life instead of some quiet country house. Meanwhile, it is revealed that Joanna is having an affair with a local doctor, Cortland Van Owen. If you've got a Van in your name, you're definitely banging someone's wife. The doctor tells her how together they can own a clinic in Beverly Hills, as well as other pleasures. Joanna offers to get a divorce from her husband, but Cortland suggests that she rather get rid of him permanently. He then pulls out a vial containing toxins, which he extracted from the ovaries of one of his exotic fish. He asks her to mix it in her husband's food or drink, after which the recipient will die of a heart attack. Joanna is initially hesitant, but Cortland slips the tiny vial into her bag, asking her to reconsider. As soon as she reaches home, she empties her purse looking for the poison. She accidentally drops it, causing it to start leaking. Reluctant to do such a heinous crime, she tosses the bottle into the trash bin. Later, Clint returns home and greets his wife, who is preparing dinner. He kisses her and tells her that he'll be working at his home workshop for a while. Soon after, the disturbing noise from the workshop irritates Joanna, causing her to rethink her decision. She then retrieves the leftover poison from the trash bin and pours it into his drink. At the same time, Clint startles her from behind and grabs both wine glasses, helping her set the table. While having their dinner, Joanna is scared to take a sip of her wine, unsure of which cup contains the poison. Inconceivable! As a result, she waits for Clint to finish his wine. However, her anxiety heightens when he asks her to toast with him. In the midst of her indecision, the poison seems to kick in as Clint begins to convulse in excruciating pain. He pleads for Joanna's help, but she callously urges him to die instead. He eventually stops struggling and collapses, seemingly succumbing to a heart attack. Joanna then calls Cortland to inform him that the deed is done. In the aftermath, Sheriff Sam and his officers, accompanied by Cortland, arrive to retrieve Clint's lifeless body. Saddened, Sam feels suspicious about the sudden heart attack, as he looked completely fine when they went fishing earlier that day. He suggests that they should get an autopsy, but Cortland somehow manages to convince him that it won't be necessary. Following this, Clint's body is taken to a morgue, where he witnesses a small movement, indicating that he might be alive. The following morning, Clint's body is taken out by the morticians to prepare for the funeral. Just then, Cortland calls the funeral home and tells them that Joanna wants Clint to be given a quick funeral, skipping the embalming process and choosing a cheap, water-damaged casket for him. The scene then cuts to the funeral, during which Duke keeps on barking as Joanna approaches the casket to put her flowers on. She also puts on a show of mourning, feigning tears and distress. Later that night, Joanna is seen enjoying a drink with Cortland in her bathtub. Meanwhile, Duke is still barking amidst the heavy rain. This annoys the jerk, so she grabs Clint's shotgun and heads outside to gun down the dog. However, as soon as she opens the cage, Duke manages to run away. She's got some balls for what she's done. Duke should have bitten them off. He makes his way to the cemetery and sits down next to Clint's grave. The rain loosens the soil, causing it to start seeping into the coffin. This unexpected intrusion awakens Clint, finally confirming that he is in fact still alive. As the water drips on his face, Clint panics and puts all of his efforts to get out of the coffin. Thankfully, due to the shabby nature of it, he manages to make his way out of it. Duke is initially scared, but he stays at a distance and barks until his owner emerges from his grave. Following this, Clint returns home but finds the front door locked. He goes to the kitchen window, only to witness his wife kissing Cortland. That doctor has a PhD in being an asshole. Being in a weakened state, Clint opts to wait for Cortland to depart, after which he breaks into the basement of the house and spends the rest of of the night there. The next day, Joanna meets with Clint's lawyer, who hands over important property documents as well as Clint's bank details to her. As they converse, she also tells the lawyer that she's willing to sell her husband's business for $1.5 million, with the condition that the payment must be done in cash within 48 hours. Meanwhile, at the basement, Clint wakes up and heads upstairs, still appearing weak. He first goes to the kitchen sink to gulp down some water, and then moves to the fridge to take a bite out of the food. Not long after, he notices Joanna arriving in her car, so he returns to the basement. He then grabs his shotgun and loads it with an intent to shoot his cheating wife. However, before he can do so, the doorbell rings. Joanna opens the door to Sheriff Sam, who has come over to check up on her. He expresses his concern about the for sale sign outside the house and asks if she's leaving town. In response, Joanna pretends that there are too many memories in this house, which is making it hard for her to stay. After a while, Cortland shows up and covers his presence. He claims that Joanna is his patient and he's here to check up on her. Upon Sam's departure, Joanna tells her boyfriend that they have to leave immediately because she fears that the sheriff might be on to them. However, Cortland calms her down and convinces her to stay for one more night, since the money from selling the business will come the next day. Amidst their conversation, Cortland reminds her how she was pregnant and how he helped her with the abortion process so that she would not have to stay with Clint. Clint, who has been overhearing their conversation, is clearly disheartened by this revelation. Now that his heart is filled with rage and vengeance, he takes out the bullets, thinking that using the gun would be an easy punishment for them. Later that night, as Joanna falls asleep, Clint grabs a pair of scissors from the room and heads up into the bathroom. He cleans himself up, tends to his hand wounds, and wraps them up with bandages before walking away. The following morning, Sheriff Sam, along with his officers, arrives at the cemetery to find Clint's grave dug up and the body missing. The sheriff orders the casket be sent to his home and asks that the investigation be kept confidential until he completes it. In the meantime, Clint's client arrives at the house and hands Joanna a briefcase full of cash, sealing off the deal. After the men leave, Joanna is super excited to leave the place with Cortland. She then enters the bathroom to wash up, only to discover that the place is covered with mud all over. She frantically rushes to call Cortland, but he doesn't answer. As a result, she leaves a voicemail, warning him that someone might be inside the house. In a precautionary move, she goes to retrieve the gun from the basement, but she's startled by Duke. She grabs the gun and prepares to shoot him, but Clint suddenly appears from behind, wearing a welding mask, but he's not here to weld their relationship back together. This prompts her to pull the trigger, and its recoil throws her into the basement, knocking her unconscious. Clint then locks her inside and goes around to seal the windows and all possible exits. On the other hand, Cortland loads a syringe with more fish poison and makes his way to Joanna's place. Upon arrival, he takes out the syringe and begins calling out for Joanna, but she doesn't answer. He then walks upstairs to her bedroom and finds the briefcase full of money. Shortly after, Joanna wakes up and hears Cortland calling her name repeatedly. Thinking that he was the one who scared her earlier, she hides under the stairs and waits for him to enter the basement. As soon as he does, she hits him with a metal rod, dropping the poison injection out of his hand. She then takes the money and tries to escape, but Clint shows up and locks them both inside. Convinced that there is a third person in the house, she regrets her action and apologizes to Cortland. When she tells him about the third person, Cortland tells her that they have to get out first. He loads the shotgun and tries to unlock the door by shooting at it, but soon realizes that the bullets are empty. Following this, he tries to break open a wooden window, but Duke starts barking at them, forcing him to retreat. Upstairs, Clint is working on remodeling the house and even saws through his wedding picture. 8 hours pass by, and Cortland assumes that it's Sheriff Sam who's doing all of this to them so that he can have a share of their wealth. Amidst this, Joanna spots the syringe filled with poison lying on the floor. She picks it up and realizes that Cortland was intending to kill her. When she confronts him regarding this, Cortland reveals that there never was a clinic and that he was actually trying to rob her in order to pay off his personal debt. Enraged by this revelation, Joanna attacks him with the syringe but fails to inject him. He eventually gets his hand on the injection and attempts to administer the poison to her. Right then, the basement door opens and Joanna convinces him not to waste the dose on her. Upon exiting the basement, the duo finds that most of the house is now blocked off by wooden panels. While trying to find a way out, they are led through a maze. Soon after, a wall emerges between the two, causing them to be separated. After this, another door opens from Cortland's side, revealing a passage to an unlocked window. At the end of the passage, he sees a shadowy figure, and, thinking that it's Sam, he tries to bribe him. As he approaches the figure, Clint suddenly reveals himself. A stunned Cortland tries to flee, but trips on the briefcase of money and falls on the syringe. Sweet baby irony. Clint then goes after Joanna, chasing her through a small hatch. She crawls through the hatchway along a low passage and ends up inside a wooden coffin, allowing Clint to shut her inside. At this point, Clint finally reveals himself to her and asserts that this is how it feels to be a rat in a maze. He also mentions their aborted child, asking if it was a boy or a girl, but receives no answer. He then dumps the dead Cortland and money inside the same coffin and nails it shut. Next, he pours gasoline all over the place and sets the entire house on fire. With this, Clint and Duke drive away from the scene with the wooden coffin behind their truck. Meanwhile, Sam is investigating the shabby coffin and soon figures out that Clint had escaped by himself. With this realization, he rushes to Clint's place and finds the house on fire. He immediately calls the fire department to have the flames extinguished. Once done, he inspects the entire place but finds no bodies inside. Following this, the sheriff returns to the cemetery and sees a man standing at Clint's filled-in grave with a shovel. When he realizes that it's Clint, Sam tells him to go away and never come back, indirectly promising to keep this incident a secret. As Clint and Duke drive away, we see the still alive Joanna. The dead, Cortland, and the money are now buried in Clint's grave. The movie ends with Joanna hopelessly screaming for help. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.